Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So, what I'd like to talk to you guys today is my top reasons for why you shouldn't rush into buying a home, especially in the year 2025. If you were like me, when I was, heck, even a few years younger, I don't care whether you're in your 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s. If you've never owned a home before and it's a goal of yours, you're anxious to get in and you see how this economy is going and it doesn't look good with interest rates rising and with the demand being as high as ever while the supply is lower than ever. People might be feeling buyer pressure to get into a home even when they're not in the best position to because of the fear of missing out. What I can tell you is, having owned my home, when I say owned, I still have a mortgage, don't get me wrong, but at least since closing on my home over 6 months ago, these are some of the things I've learned and why you shouldn't rush into buying your home. I'm not saying don't buy a home by all means. Do I think it's a great investment? Do I think there are more benefits to owning a home than renting? Absolutely. And that may be a video for another day, but today, what I want to tell you guys is why you shouldn't rush it, why you shouldn't rush the process. So, I've owned my home for the last 6 months, and some of the things that I've learned since becoming the homeowner is there are a lot of things that you don't have to account for when you are renting. That might seem pretty obvious, but once you actually start living in it, once you actually start doing it, it kind of takes you aback a little bit. So, what do I mean by that? Well, there's an old saying, at least this is a saying I've heard, I don't know how popular it is. The rent is the most you will pay in a given month, while your mortgage is the very least amount that you will pay each month. It's at least how much you'll pay each month. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, the rent, you're not, when you pay someone rent, you're not responsible for the maintenance of that property. You're not responsible for the upkeep of that property. You are responsible for paying a certain set amount of money each month and probably your utilities on top of that. Whereas when you own a home, you need to account for everything on that property. Everything from the furnace to your water tank to your foundation to your drywall to even just your front patio steps. And there, to say it's not cheap would be a drastic understatement. You can easily get into the thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in repair costs if you encounter the right issue, the right set of circumstances, or if you don't take care of the property and you let stuff degrade for too long, then it becomes even that much more expensive, where you're talking full replacement of certain expensive implements of that house. So these are the things I've learned since owning my home. And if I could go back in time and tell my younger self something, it would be this: you're going to own your home, or at least be able to complete the closing cost process and move in. But if you think you're saving enough now, you're not. I was able to fortunately get in with a first time homebuyer loan, and you know, those are only about 3 to 5% down payments required. Even so, you don't want to just say, okay, there's my cost and that's it. You want to save at least, I'd say, another $5,000 to $10,000 more than what your closing costs are going to be. Because in the first 6 months, I can tell you I've had at least two or three major repairs done on my home, and I've spent several thousand into my house since moving in, and that was only 6 months ago. Now, granted, was some of it dire versus some of it just necessary? I would lean towards more the necessary than emergency, but even so, it's your house, right? It's your home, and you don't want to take it for granted. You don't want to let stuff decay to a state where all of a sudden you've got a bigger headache on your hands. So, these are the things I've learned since owning my home. Number one is this: if you think you have enough of a down payment for your house, add another 5 to 10,000 on top of that. If you think you have enough, or if you know what your down payment is going to be, save at least $5 to $10,000 more than what that is going to be. And the reason I say that is because even if that house is brand freaking new, odds are there's something that is going on that you may need to address or might want to have addressed before you move into the home. Or something might rear its ugly head a couple months later after you've moved into the home and you need to address it ASAP. So that would be tip number one. Um, I could spell more detail into that. It seems pretty short, but I mean, it's the most self explanatory in my opinion. If you've got a crack, if you've got a leak, if you've got a pipe burst, if you've got a furnace that goes out, if you've got a water tank that goes out, if you've got uh, let's say a leak or something un- unforeseen comes up, it's going to cost you a hefty penny. And you want to be sure you're prepared and covered. You don't want to have to go into debt to cover the needs of maintenance and repairs on your home. You don't want to become house broke, is what I'm getting at. And that would be my first lesson learned since buying my home. The second is something I've already touched on is repair maintenance. I don't think I need to say any more with that, but essentially you need to be able to cover those costs. You don't want to go into debt. Otherwise, you're going to end up owing everybody something. You don't want to be in debt for your house. You don't. You want to be able to have that cash up front. I think even Dave Ramsey in several of his videos has talked about this, that you don't want to be house broke. You don't want to go into debt for your house. You should have the cash on hand to be able to cover those costs. And I completely agree with that statement and that principle. Number three is this: whatever mortgage you get from your lender, there's no guarantees that mortgage won't increase in the future because taxes increase. Your insurance could increase. Something could happen. You see what's happening right now in Florida with the homeowners there. And just because you get a mortgage doesn't mean it's going to be set at that amount. Your interest rate might, but that doesn't mean your monthly cost won't increase. So if you're already going into a home that is stretching your budget, then you really should reconsider. Your home should only be about 25 to 30% of your take home pay each month, in my opinion. That was at least the um, numbers I stuck with. Have they been perfect? No. Have they worked? Have I been able to deal with it? Yes, I would say so. But even so, you don't want to have to rely on that. You really don't. You want to be able to have some spread between your monthly income and what you owe each month for your home. And last but not least, if you rush into a home, you obviously are going to be stuck in that location, right? You get a first year home buyer mortgage, you're going to be required to live in that home for a year. So if you rush the process just because it was a cheap deal or it was a decent sized home or whatever the case may be, but your location is not in a good area, your location, you move in and you have second thoughts about it, you're kind of stuck there, at least till you get out your first year. You don't want to rush the process. You want to be able to at least, I don't want to say scout an area like it's a bad thing, but at least get an idea of what area you're moving into if you do buy this home. Don't rush the process. Not to say the area I've moved in is bad by any means. No, I am I'm still grateful for where I moved in. I have no regrets there. But you hear about these stories all the time where people rush in and they have buyer's remorse. They have homeowner regret almost immediately. And it's usually either financially related or it's because of the location. So what I can say is, um, it's true. You don't want to rush it. I'm not saying don't own a home. There definitely are advantages to owning a home, and I think in the long run, it's a smart investment to own a home. But by all means, don't rush it. Don't rush it because if you think you're going to miss out, you're not. You're not. And not to get religious, but fear is a tactic of the devil. It really is. What's meant for you won't pass you by. And you got to go in with that positive mindset. You've got to go in knowing that, yes, what's meant for me will not pass me by, and it won't. And I can tell you right now, the home I thought I wanted to move in before I got the one I'm currently in, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was exactly the house I wanted. And in hindsight, I wouldn't have been able to afford it. And I lost out on a higher bid. And while I was disappointed at the time, in hindsight, it was a blessing in disguise. Because if I had gotten into that house, I wouldn't have been able to afford it, and I'd be another statistic. So anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up. That's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Leave a like, comment. I'd be curious to know your stories or hear any questions people have. Talk to you guys later. See ya.